Right, hi, how are you doing? Microphone over there. So I'm going to make this video here to try to go over how to make miniatures pop a little bit more as a beginner using Kimera Kolors. So if you're like me, had more money than brains, and you went and bought Kimera paints and you just started painting again or just started full stop, you're using the colors and you're like, I'm struggling a little bit. This might help, it might not, we'll see. We're going with the kind of the attempt at high contrast. I'm not great, okay? But this is kind of the effect that we're going to go for today, right? Is doing these sorts of things with just Kimera. Pretty lazy with my Goblin skin, so let's pretend you don't see the skin. Okay, I'll make sure that's in focus, right? But these are the kind of the things that we can do, and I want to show you that you can do this. So even if you are a beginner starting reasonably from scratch, this is doable. Okay, very doable. None of this is particularly advanced. Now, this is the example that I was going to show. We're going to ignore proper lighting. We're just kind of going to go with the fact that we want the miniature to look however we want it to look, and if the higher something is, the lighter it's going to be. Okay, so we're not going to go strictly on whether the light is in the right spot or not, because look, I can't even show anything on the camera. You just get some blurry. It's probably good because I painted that guy with dry paint on his skin and it looks really bad, so it's good that you can't see the front. I was also going to do a thing where I painted a shield really nice and then just covered it in paint and was like, listen, relax, mistakes happen, you don't have to worry about it. You can get different effects, right? You don't have to go for that really strong from dark to light thing. You can get what you need from Kimera for anything you need. It is just paint, right? Do whatever you want with it. This is a mix of different paints, right? But the ones that are mainly all Kimera is that little blue dude. So we're going to go with that. Need a miniature. Need some paints. That'll happen with broken base. There's a little lesson in that. And the lesson is the miniature doesn't matter, right? What matters is you. Okay, so this was painted by someone else at some stage, and I just covered it with brush primer, right? It hasn't been primed very, very, very well. It does not matter, okay? What matters is what you are going to do with it, and you doing your best, right? Show yourself more respect than you show the miniature. The miniature is just a little toy, and it comes to life after you paint it. Now, the approach that we're going to take is we're going to start in shadow. We're going to build to a primary base color. This is going to fall off. This is going to be hilarious when it falls off. More durable now. And then we're going to build up to a highlight. We're going to ignore kind of, you know, where the light's coming from, other than we're just going to say it is somewhere in the sky. And the points that you can see now are the bits that are going to be highlighted, right? I'm going to have a whole other video on light. Normally I would try to paint light from here, so anything you could see would be in light, anything you couldn't would be in shadow, and if you're a miniature painter, you'll bend those rules a bit. We're not going to talk about fabrics or anything, it's just if it's high, it's going to be light. That's it, okay? Don't stress about that stuff. I stressed about that stuff, and I suck pretty bad. And it doesn't help. But practice, right? If you can practice with your miniatures, you can practice. So, start in shadow, build to a primary color, and then just go higher. So have brighter colors at the higher points of the model. So physically height-wise, things that are pointing up towards the sky should have a highlight, okay? This is predominantly going to be layering, so we're not going to be glazing. Layering is just painting one coat and then getting another coat and painting on top of it. I'm going to try to do it wet. It won't be very wet because my room is very, very dry. So when we say wet, it means that I'll put the paint down. It'll be a little puddle still of paint. It won't actually be a puddle, but it'll be wet and not tacky, right? If it's tacky, when you push the paint, it'll push like a layer, so you'll create a wrinkle of paint. You don't want that. But paint will be wet, and then you just put a new color on it. There'll be stages where we have to kind of stop and let it dry, especially when we want to get to our higher highlights. So, background information about painting in shadows. This happens to be on my table. When we want our shadow, we want to paint in, you either go black, right? Mix black, or mix the opposite color. So we're going to paint this little dude, the squig. This is Goblin, by the way. This is one of the Skarsnik models, right? So he's the real war boss of the old goblins. So Goblin here. I love show and tell. This is Goblin when he grew up and he lost his teeth. He's lost some teeth, so bad. I waffle a lot and I make random noises, so I'm sorry. And I'll turn this camera off in a second so I won't be distracted by it. So, when we want a shadow, right, you can either mix the color with black and it will go into a shadow. So if I had a red, I mix black and it will draw down into shadow. Or I mix the opposite color on the color wheel. If I want it to be more of a brown shadow, then I will have all three primary colors, right? So I don't want a brown. I just want more of a darker color. So I'm painting this guy, he's red. So I got red. Opposite the color wheel, all right, it's a green or a blue, okay? Green has blue and yellow. So that would be yellow, blue, and red. That's three primaries. It will turn into a brownish color. I don't want that, okay? So instead I'm going to pick a blue and I'm gonna hope that the blue-red shade is predominantly blue and red. And I'm gonna hope that the red is predominantly red-blue. There was a comment in one of my other videos that I think told me that, but I don't remember. But this is what I do, okay? So I'm going to add blue and red to get my shadow. It'll generate some sort of purple, right, as I mix these together. But it'll start pretty dark, okay? And then if I want to lighten it, I'll add white and it will move up this way, okay? I'm pretty sure the color would be somewhere around here. Do I have the other color wheel here? No. We mix with titanium white. So if you have that color wheel that has the three colors, the one on the left, I believe, is the titanium white one. So that's what this is, titanium white. So then from the shadow, we're going to build up to the base coat, which I want it to be red. So we're going to start adding more red to that mix until we have red. And then to highlight it, I'm going to start adding the yellow, right? I'm going to have like just red because red is the base coat. So there'll be no more blue in it. And I'm going to build up from that point to a higher value. So that means going either something that when you squint your eyes, it looks brighter, or it has more white in it, right? So we're going to have a bit of both. So we're going to squint our eyes, and then the yellow colors will look brighter than the red, and we're going to add a little white. We're going to do it with orange, okay? So orange and white. And we'll get that goblin going. For his cloak, probably going to do blue. So I could probably mix the same purple color for the entire model. And then instead of going towards the red, I'll go towards the blue. But notice how it's all pretty dark. So we're probably going to have to add that white. And if we really want to, we can add some of that green. But I don't really like the green. So that's our plan, okay? So our plan is to start in shadow, build up to a base coat, and then highlight things that are pointing up to the sky, okay? That's our goal today. That is what we want to do. So this is similar to that, right? But I used a few different colors here. Started something pretty dark, but as you see, it's a brown in there, right? So I must have mixed something that had all three colors, like a green and the red. and then I've built up to a more solid red. Okay, so let's do that. So you want a wet palette. If you don't have a wet palette, a sponge and some baking paper will do that. You need a brush. If you don't have a brush, use your tongue. Okay, you need a model, not falling anymore. Okay, so that's it. See you guys next time. Bye bye. This is gonna be a long video because we're painting a whole miniature. I'm gonna do my best to be pretty quick. My brushes are pretty old. They're still pretty good. So the point is now gone in the size 1. So if you remember my video about brushes, I would have said get this brush size 1. So the tip's gone. Right? It's now been a long time. It's still a decent brush. So I've been using the 00 a lot, and the tip is still kind of there, but it's pretty much gone as well. Okay, so I have some more brushes on the way. You hear that cat in the background? This may be the end of the video because my cat, needs to be in the room. Okay? So, I'm very low production. Yeah, I know. I also don't care about stuff, so this will be a tribute to Cat. So red. Yikes. Blue. I already kind of mixed these. I'm gonna put 2 piles of blue. Doesn't really matter. I'm just doing it. Do I really need the white now? Probably. This video is going to be really weird because the cat demands to sit on my lap. Now, here's another thing. I mean, I'm not promoting Kimera. I was one of those people that bought Kimera. I like this white, okay, because it's already got the additives in it. It just is easier to use. Okay, so I'm not like, this video is not there to recommend Kimera. It's just that people buy it like I bought it, and you know, we need a hand. So Flow 8, I like it. You could use airbrush medium as well. You could also use water to mix your paints. Sorry. This cat. I use Flow 8. It's good. Imagine all those amazing YouTubers, right, that you watch, and they have their videos done in like 5 seconds. Do they stop their entire videos for their cats? Yes. Yes, they do. Do you understand? Because that's what it means to be a YouTuber, is to paint cats. Okay? Saw the snap. Oh my gosh, such a dark color. It's pretty brown as well, isn't it? Interesting. Interesting. Now, this mix is looking chunky. That's a problem. Something has gone wrong here. And you can see it's pretty purple actually, not brown. Yeah, I don't like the way that looks. So, see how it didn't pull in on itself? That's a problem. It's not wet enough, right? You need it to be wetter than that. So I'm mixing in the flow improver. Now you should, use other stuff. But see how now it is drawing in on itself? It is squishing in on itself. That actually looks different because there's a reflection, right? That means now it is ready to go on your model. You can paint a little bit thicker than that, right? That's okay. In fact, 100%, this is too wet. But we're doing it. Because I'm going to coat the entire model in this, I'm actually okay with this. But that is 100% too wet. 100% too wet. Is this too purple? I don't know, guys. We'll find out. Also, if you're using kind of this approach, where you're starting in shadow, there's no reason to prime the model white. This is like a bone color. So the reason why I use this color is because this model was sitting on my desk. This is a while ago that this was happening. And I primed something else in bone. And so I just primed this in bone as well. It's that simple. It is that simple, right? I do want this a little thicker, let's be fair. I think it's important that, you know, I'm the beginner, right? But I'm the beginner with like a year of experience. So I think it's important that you see people like me struggle, as well as do okay, right? And you see what's happening. So I know that it's, you know, you watch a video and you're like, get to the good part. The good part should be you painting, right? So paint right now. Get your model out and paint it. And that would be the good part. The good part is you painting it. And then just listen to this trash as I talk. And be like, yeah, okay, that sounds alright, that's a good idea, yeah, maybe. Oh, I don't think so, that's not what that guy said. And then go from there, right? So I'm just covering the, I'm just covering the model with this color, right? So this is a darker color. So I don't particularly care. I just want it to be in shadow. So this is the purple shadow. So when people kind of airbrush purple into the shadow, this is possibly why, right? Possible. So if you're using a yellow, like you mix in, I mean, you kind of have, I would say you kind of have to use the purple, which is a mix of blue and red, obviously. And so that is going to create a brown shadow, right? So you can't, it's not like you can always, I know, a little cut. You can't always just be like, you know, I don't want a brown shadow. And there's nothing wrong with a brown shadow, right? At all. So, personal issues here with this model. All these big puddles that you see, that you probably can't see because the camera doesn't pick it up, because trash camera, trash, very expensive camera, right? So you can see them on the left, all that wet paint. I personally would be fine painting over that right now, but I'm not gonna, okay? I want my kind of shadow level to be kind of set. And the reason why is I don't want the model to be super, super dark. Okay, I'm okay for it to get a little bit brighter here. I've got more red here because I know this guy is going to be more red and I want him to be entirely red. So the difference here, okay, is I don't want the big black, super dark purple shadow. Okay, I want this guy to be a red ball. So here are your options, okay, about miniature, like painting in terms of art. I'm just going to cover his eye because you should be comfortable just understanding that the model is just a toy, right? So see, oh no, I wasn't careful about the teeth. Oh no, don't worry, okay? It's not, if I said there was two choices, I'm being a bit silly there. So there are multiple choices of how you paint your model, right? One is the heavy metal way, which is base coats, you put in glazes for your shadows, right? Or, you know, shade paints. You could also do the same for the highlights. Big, broad mid-tones, right? So the primary color of the model. And then, you know, your shadows are really small and you've got lots of edge highlights. So this, right, but with edge highlights. right? This is kind of the heavy metal style. I know you're probably thinking, no, it's not. I've seen Space Marines. This doesn't look anything like a Space Marine. But that kind of is the base coat and highlighting of heavy metal, but then you add your edge highlights, okay? So the difference is much more apparent when you kind of put these next to each other, right? The guy on the right has big, the light is really bad on that, as in the choices I made with the lighting. But big shadows, right? And then these kind of big points of highlights. This is just like more of an artistic choice. Like I've just made that choice because I like it, not because the lighting is good. Or the lighting is really badly here. I'm sorry, but they're the kind of two styles. If I lighted this properly, and then that where everything is in full light. But that's for your choice to make about lighting, right? And how you want the model to be lit up and how you want it to look. So, I mean, these are just practices. I don't really want to get out of the chair here and show examples. That was also painting practice. I think it's all painting practice on this table. Yeah, so this is more of the kind of from darkness into light, right? Whereas this guy here is more fully immersed in the light, right? Except for his cape. But like I said, I'm still kind of beginner, so yeah, I'm learning light, and getting better is about learning where to put the light. So, purple shadow on Gobber. Purple shadow in Gobber, on Gobber. I still need that purple color, so I have the red, and then I have a little bit of the blue. But it's heading more towards the red. What did we not do here? Well, we didn't wet it, so let's add some of that flow improver to wet it. It's probably still too wet. That's probably still too dry. So I could see the pigments kind of, like it didn't have big puddles and there's big pigment stains on that, so that means it's too dry. And then I kind of pushed the paint across here and the pigments are kind of spread out better, but I can still see pigment in there, so really I should be mixing that up more. Bit of a problem. So let's paint. So I'm going to start from the things that are pointing up and then move down until things are pointing down, right? Oh, that's got too much paint on there, but whatever. So I don't paint the things that are pointing down. I fully understand that there's you know, how I can better do lighting, right? But I'm just going to start with this. So, painted everything that's pointing up. So that is stuff that's in the light. But, okay, that's a super dark color. So I don't really want my shadows to be that one color. I want the shadows to be more interesting and more of a gradient. So this is actually going to be my shadow color. So that means I can start moving towards past that point where this color is actually now the shadow. And the reason why you still do it from the top, right, is because this is red pigment in it. And as I build other stuff with red pigment, it will show up and it will be, when I say more vibrant or more saturated, I think is the correct phrase, right? But the red will show through it. So building up from dark to light is a good thing because I'm layering that red pigment down, and then I'm just going to pack more and more of that red pigment, which makes it more saturated, so it will eventually build into that color. So there's that. And I said we're going to kind of do some wet blending. So I get more red and I put it in that mix. Now it's more red. I've probably not mixed enough, and now it's probably too wet. Yeah, whatever. I start from the top and I bring it down. Alright, there's too much paint on there, but whatever. We're going to go zoomy here. And now that I've gone past that point where the shadow is, so if we don't get what I'm saying with the shadow, if the light's here, right, as it cascades, the line there would be the shadow. Think of the moon and the sun. You can't see anything behind the moon. That's in darkness. Now in the real world, light saturates everything. But this will all be in light. So I painted everything, and then because I wanted more of that shadow color, I went back down into the shadow. Into the shadow sort of thing. This is probably the wrong thing we're looking at. So now I'm going to keep building up and painting less and less and less until I'm just showing the parts that are in light as the brightest thing. Right? So I've gone, so this is like a sphere. So I think it helps out a little bit looking at it that way. Right? We're building red. Now, I want more red. Put it in that mix. More red. Because I'm building up to my base coat, which I want to be red. Right? So I've started in shadow, and now I'm building to my base coat. Pretty wet, so everything that's pointing up now are the things that I am painting. And there's the point where the light comes in and all that kind of business, but again, I said we're going to ignore that. So building up to red, blow on it for magic. I was just drying out a little bit. So this is the whole wet blending thing, but you can let it dry between layers. And if you let it dry between layers, you can do what's called the glazing, well, not the glazing technique, but glazing, and it will give you much smoother transitions between things. That's still recording, cool. All right. There is a point where you kind of have to let it dry, okay? And especially if you're kind of jumping like really high, like I am. When I say jumping, I mean going from like, a dark color really just drastically to a light color. So when you see that, well, not see that, when you kind of hear that sort of comparison of jumping values or things like that, I don't think anyone actually talks about it like that. I guess it's just me. That's just me that says that. But when you jump really high, like blending, and it's like making your transitions between your darks and your light really fast, like going from black to white, as high and as fast as you can go sort of thing. It will look worse, and it looks more obvious, transitions. I shouldn't say it looks worse, but I don't want to say this. I think it looks worse. Let's just go with that. It looked worse. Okay, guys. So, I mean, he's not looking great, but he'll look better. He will look better. More red in that mix. So the idea is we're trying to build to a solid red, and the solid red can be your highest highlight, or you can go beyond that. You can go above that. Sorry about the background noise if you can hear it. Again, lazy, low production. So here, right, I'd say the jump is too high, and then what kind of happens is it looks chalky. That's the other thing that can happen, right? And the chalkiness is just the kind of pigments sitting there. And because the value jump is so high, your eye is not mistaken, like it's not confused about what it's seeing, so it sees the pigments. Whereas if there's like a smooth blend, your eye won't see the pigments, right? Because it's just like a smooth transitions of colors. So then, like, you're tricked into thinking it's smooth. Getting pretty close to solid red already, guys. Where? I've done this way slower than I needed to. This was supposed to be a faster video. I could have detached Goblin. You know what I'm saying? And painted him nicer. I did that on the other one. Also, I could have planned this video out. I just decided I was going to make it. I'm just like, right, let's make this video. So it's looking very red, which is nice. He goes fast. Definitely not going to paint his skin today, or I'll pause this recording to make another one. That's step 2. I could do that. I can do multiple videos. Really doesn't matter how this performs. Following on, advanced technique. You need hairy fingers to do it right. By the way, Flow Improver keeps it wet. So, as much as like, you know, it seems like I want it to dry. You don't want it to dry that much that, like, there's a point where once it dries too much, you have to let it completely dry. Because then what you're doing is just messing up the layers of paint that is sitting there. And you start pushing dried paint. Now, this was not skillfully done. And the reason why I'm saying it's not skillfully done is because have I properly considered how the light is going to hit this? No, right? If I did, there's going to be some transitions here. There's going to be a point where that red is the brightest and then it moves down. But I haven't done that. And if you are a beginner kind of, and you're watching this, which is kind of the whole point of this video, then you shouldn't do that either. You should just let it happen. Let me show you something better. Just because that looks so bad and you're like, oh my god, that is so terrible. How could I, why am I watching this video? It gets better, okay? Okay, it does get better. Plus when you start putting in the teeth, like you show the teeth, you paint the teeth, it looks better. So, this is kind of our base. So, I want this to dry more. We've gone from the shadow and we've built up, so we started in shadow and we've built up to the solid red. So I'm going to get the red now, the full red. I'm going to wet it a little bit, right? And because that Flow Improver there is dirty, it's not going to be 100% solid red, but that's okay for my purpose. Probably too dry for what I want this to be, but that's fine. And I'm going to get the most raised surfaces. But I'm going to highlight above this, so I don't have to be super, super, super careful here. So what I've kind of done now is I'm just, imagine he's a sphere, and I'm just kind of picking, I'm just basically saying the light is directly above, right? And I've put it that red. So now I've built up to that red. For a lot of your reds, red you're probably going to enjoy painting more than anything eventually when you get to it. You might choose that to be your highest highlight. Orange. I think normally I use the yellow here, but we're going to go with orange. Bit of orange on the palette. Okay? Now we're going to go into a highlight. Okay? I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And I'm going to mix all 3 colors. Let's go more red. So why am I mixing all 3 colors, you might think? Well, doesn't that make a brown? Yes, it does. I'm going to paint his shoes brown while this is drying. Probably didn't mix enough. So I mix orange that has a yellow in it. I mix red, which has a red in it. And I mix blue, which has a blue in it. And so that kind of comes together to make a brown. And he has some brown stuff on him. This brush is too big for this, but I guess it won't really matter because I'm going to paint over all this stuff. A little brown belt. And then probably not going to paint his skin in this video. Actually, definitely won't because I'm impatient. So I'll upload this before I finish the miniature for sure. So the skin's not going to get done. And as I said before, I'm pretty lazy with the skin. That is the difference between having a dark undercoat and having a white undercoat, if you can. Light. Light! You can't. There's nothing. Do you like the wrinkles in my hand? That's what this video is about, is the wrinkles in my hand. That's all that's important. Wrinkles in my hand. So, we were letting that little dude dry. That was the point. So we're going to go red and some orange. Oh, that's very red and orange. It's more orange than red. So I'm going to put some more red on this side. There's definitely some dirtiness to this, but you know, we are beginners, so don't worry about that, please. If your brush had a better tip, you could use a bigger brush and highlight with that, right? Because it's got a better tip. I'm just going to go use a smaller brush here. Reality is, you can use that one brush as long as it's still got that tip. And this is where we need to highlight. So I'm reinforcing the red by putting the red back there. Seems a little dry in that. And then we're going to put that orange mix in. So this is the orange with the red. The value is pretty similar, so if you squint your eyes, they look the same, right? So the value is kind of too similar. So instead of using the orange, you might want to go with a yellow instead. The reason why I go with the orange is when I mix the white in it, it's going to be less pink. Alright, so I'm going to put a touch of this white. That was probably actually enough. We'll see what happens. And we're picking all the points that are pointing up towards less sky. Just leave it on camera. And the other thing is, right, if you think something will look better with this highlight, like touching it, just put it there, right? Again, respect yourself more than the miniature. If you think, oh man, that's going to look cool, that's fantastic. That's called inspiration. Use that inspiration, right? Be like, hey, yeah, this is going to look sick. Do it. Do it. Do it. Because yeah, you might enjoy yourself while, you know, doing a hobby. I probably should have tested what this color was going to look like. It's very, 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 very bright, isn't it? So this is that value jump. It's a huge value jump. Oh my gosh, too much. It's too much, right? Absolutely, it's too much. But the thing about red is you might have to do this. Alright. You won't be able to tell with this very expensive, terrible camera, which is, god damn, I wish I... Actually, you can tell. No, actually, that you can't tell. The thing here was too wet as I was doing that. So, huge value jump. You could argue that that is contrast, but I'm never gonna just like give myself tips on contrast, because whoever you speak to, be like, add more contrast. Add more contrast, okay? That's kind of how it always will be. Guys, what is happening here? Why is this not focusing? Finally, I bought an expensive webcam that allegedly has the most amazing autofocus. Bruh. Huge value jump. Not looking smooth, right? Because that huge value jump. So what can I do with my Kimera Kolors? Is, well, I've got my palette here. So if the value jump was too high, well, you need to go backwards in your transition. And actually, I want to go back to solid red. And I want this to be very, very thin. I know I said that this is going to be mainly layering, but I'm a liar. I'm an absolute deviant, lying to you good people online. And this, believe it or not, you're going to be like, actually, if you're a beginner, you're going to face this problem. Anytime you put that white in something, it's chalky as heck. And you'll know what chalky means once you put white into it. Okay? It looks like you've laid down some paste. And honestly, it looks bad. Okay? Get a better white. Not a better white, get a white that's got the additives already in it. So it's not a better white. It's the same pigments. It's just it's got the stuff in there already. So that's, I mean, looks kind of bad. Let's orange, red. And let's try to make that look a little bit better. So what am I doing to try to make that better? So I've got this big step. It's too much. So I need to kind of blend them back together. So that means instead of having stairs of colors, I want it to be a ramp of colors. So I need to build up gradually towards it. So what I've done is I've gone backwards in that transition. In this case, I went back to the red. And so then I kind of covered it with the red to make that, whatever that color was that I had on there, the pinky orange, back to a red. But there's high contrast because of that. And now I've gone back and I've blended the colors so they're a little bit closer together. So it's more of a ramp of colors ramping up. Then this brush is definitely seen its day. Ordered some new brushes today, actually. Exact same ones. I've had these for, I've been painting almost every day. Maybe, well, I don't know, every day, but a lot. So they've gone for a very, very long time. So that's Gola. Let's I'm just mixing some random colors here. Random. What I have on the palette. This is something that you, if you're a beginner, you again, you're gonna respect the equipment more than yourself. That's a problem. If you need to put more paint on the palette, put more paint on the palette. Don't be stingy about it, which is kind of funny because I was just then being stingy about it instead of getting a new paint out. Okay, just use it. I've had, you know, these same sets of paints for as long as I've been uploading any sort of video here. So you can kind of go back and see how long that's been. Not the age of my account, but like miniatures with, or videos with miniatures in them. And that's how long I've had these paints. So I haven't only been painting with this, with Kimera, but I've painted quite a few miniatures and I haven't run out of anything yet. The black's really good, by the way. I really like the black. I really like the red. So if instead of buying the full set, you want to buy, you know, just the colors that you think you might want. I think the black's really good. Super dark matte black that looks pretty sick. The red obviously is really good. That'd be it. That'd be all my recommendations. Yellow ochre and red ochre are also very good. They're pretty good. So that's a snare. Why am I painting blue teeth and blue eyes? Because there's blue on the palette. I was kind of trying to get these to go more to grey. So what's a grey? It is black and white. So what's black and white? Well, one is the absence of all colours, and one is all the colours. Right? Mixed together. And grey is pushing towards the, wow, this brush is actually trash. I put this is the first miniature I've tried to paint since putting it in the brush cleaner. Like I've put it in the brush cleaner several times. I've cleaned this lots of times. But yeah, it's struggling. It's struggling. All right, so I'm going to make this as part 1. Okay, so part 1, we've done Goblin's skin. In part 2, we'll do his cloak. Okay? Build your transitions a little bit better, right? And you'll get something more akin to the guy on the left. But I'm going to not touch this, and I'm going to paint the teeth, and I'm going to paint the eye, right? And you'll see what he looks like, okay? This also builds to white. So hang on a second. Let's do that. So I'm going to have the white and the orange, right? Put them together. It's like a fluoro orange there on the table. This brush is gone. This brush is done. And I'm going to put little touches where, you know, you might have a highlight. Oh my gosh, this brush. So you might be a beginner with a bad brush, so I have to persist. My God, this is exceptionally interesting. It's fine. And then put that color in those points where you might see a reflection of light, okay? I think it generates just something a little bit more interesting in the model. This is kind of this brush. I'm going to try to clean this brush again. It's very split. It's a shame, isn't it? That's why I bought new ones, right? Da 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 da. So I'm just cleaning this up. My cat, the cat's there, posing. She wants to be patted. Well, anyway, from afar it probably looks a little bit better. And then once the eye is done and the teeth are done, it'll look a little bit different. But see those big step highlights? If I did them a little bit smaller, it generates a little bit more visual interest. Okay? So that's what's happening up here. Now, that's it. So this will be part 1, which is, I guess, pretty long. And then we'll do part 2, where we try to make a cape look a little bit like that. Whenever that happens, it happens. If it's sooner, it's sooner. If it's later, it's later. That's this very important thing that you need to see. Alright. It's the cat. Okay? There is my cat. So, start from shadow, build up to a base coat, and then highlight. Okay? That's what you need to do. Well, it's not what you need to do. It's not what you need to do at all. It is just an option. Okay? There's an option that's available to you with your transitioning of colors. So, starting in shadow, I think, is the most important thing because it gives you somewhere to go. If you start with the solid base coat, there's not much else to go, right? So it's gonna, especially with red. If you start as just solid red, and then you build up, you have to kind of build up with oranges, yellows, whites, so your miniature becomes orange. It won't really become yellow, but orange, yellow, white. Okay, so it's not red. So if you want the model to look red, you have to start in shadow and then build to the red so the red is more predominantly the color, and then highlight from there so your colors are a little bit your highlights aren't overpowering everything. Okay. Alright, so that's it. That's part one. See my ugly fat face? How you doing? And my cute cat. So have a nice night. Not a nice night. Have a nice YouTube experience.